There is a slow-motion crisis unfolding across the American housing market right now, and it has nothing to do with interest rates, inventory, or inflation. It has to do with water. The one resource every home, every neighborhood, every city absolutely cannot function without. And here's the thing, most buyers, sellers, and even real estate professionals are still not talking about. Water scarcity is no longer a future problem. It is a right-now problem. It is already reshaping where people want to live, what they're willing to pay, and how confidently they're making long-term housing decisions. In 2026, more than half of the continental United States is experiencing drought conditions. Western snowpack, the natural reservoir that fills rivers and feeds the water systems that millions of people depend on, has been consistently disappointing. Aquifers that took thousands of years to fill are being drained in decades. Reservoirs that once looked full are now showing their bathtub rings. At the same time, the housing market itself has tilted. Sellers now outnumber buyers by some of the widest margins we've seen in years. In many markets, buyers have leverage they haven't had in a long time. And water-stressed cities, they're about to discover what happens when cautious buyers meet a city carrying a water problem it can't hide. Because here's what actually happens when water becomes a conversation in real estate. Everything gets heavier. Insurance, utility bills, landscaping costs, development fights, resale uncertainty. The house that looked attractive last year now has to answer harder questions. And once those questions start being asked, home values start moving downward. Today, we're walking through the 10 U.S. cities where that pressure is already building. These are cities where the water situation is serious enough, right now in 2026, to directly threaten housing prices. Not theoretical cities. Not someday cities. Right now, cities. Let's get into it. Number 10, Denver, Colorado. Denver opens this list because it represents a specific kind of danger, the danger of a market that has been so confidently sold for so long that the cracks take longer to register. Ask most people about Denver's water situation and they'll wave it off. Mountains, snowpack. Colorado has water, right? The reality is more complicated. Colorado's mountain snowpack is exactly what fills the reservoirs and rivers that Denver depends on. When snowpack runs thin, as it has during repeated western drought cycles, the downstream effects ripple through everything. Water agencies plan more conservatively. Outdoor water use gets more restricted. The lush green lawns and thoughtfully landscaped yards that sell Denver homes for premium prices get harder and more expensive to maintain. Denver has built a powerful brand around outdoor quality of life, mountain proximity, active lifestyles, premium neighborhoods with premium price tags to match. For years, buyers paid that premium without thinking twice about the water supply underneath it all. But premium markets are fragile in a specific way. They depend heavily on buyer confidence. And confidence is exactly what gets shaken when a metro this expensive starts surfacing serious questions about long-term water reliability. You don't need a crisis. You just need enough buyers to hesitate, negotiate harder, or redirect their attention to a market that carries less uncertainty. In a city where the median home price puts buyers at full financial stretch, that hesitation is expensive. Number 9, Salt Lake City, Utah. Salt Lake City is dealing with something particularly difficult, a water story with two dimensions, and both of them are bad. The first is supply. Utah has experienced record low snowpack, and reporting in early 2026 indicates the city may need to return to active drought protocols. Weak runoff conditions put additional pressure on municipal supplies at exactly the moment growth demands are increasing. The second dimension is visibility. The Great Salt Lake, one of the most iconic geographic features in the entire region, continues approaching historically low levels despite years of conservation attention. This is not a problem you can hide. It is a shrinking, visible, photographable warning sign sitting in the middle of the region's identity. And that visibility matters enormously for housing. When buyers consider a major relocation, they're not just running the numbers. They're forming a feeling, a gut sense of whether a place feels stable, vibrant, and worth the investment. When the most iconic natural landmark in the region keeps appearing in headlines about ecological stress, that feeling shifts, even for buyers who couldn't point to the lake on a map 6 months ago. Salt Lake City has done a remarkable job selling lifestyle. Mountains, skiing, cleaner air than many Western cities, a growing tech sector, and a sense of outdoor identity that attracts ambitious households. But lifestyle markets are uniquely vulnerable when the environment that supports the lifestyle starts showing strain. What once felt like a premium for living somewhere special starts feeling like a surcharge for living somewhere stressed. Number 8. Bakersfield, California. Bakersfield's water problem runs deep, literally. The San Joaquin Valley sits atop one of the most severely overdrafted groundwater basins in the entire country. Land in parts of the valley has physically subsided, sunk, because so much groundwater has been pumped out. Infrastructure gets damaged, wells run dry. Water policy fights become more intense and more expensive. For Bakersfield specifically, this creates a real estate problem that is harder to dismiss than in other markets. The city has built its housing appeal on a simple promise: more home for your money. Bigger lots, lower prices, a practical entry into California homeownership without the coastal price tag. But that value proposition depends on buyers believing that the region's fundamentals are sound. And when the fundamental in question is whether the ground itself is stable, whether your well will keep working, whether future water management costs will climb, whether the entire basin can sustain growth without accelerating the damage, the bargain starts looking less attractive. A house that costs half of what it would in Los Angeles doesn't feel like a deal if the buyer walks away, worrying about what the next decade of groundwater depletion looks like. Number 7. Fresno, California. Fresno's story is Bakersfield's story with an additional layer of exposure. Fresno has been actively marketed to priced-out California households as a smarter choice. The pitch has been consistent: Central California affordability, family-sized homes, space, schools, a slower pace. A reasonable compromise when coastal markets feel impossible. That pitch has worked, which is exactly why the water situation matters so much. Fresno's regional water systems are under sustained groundwater stress, with ongoing sustainability plans and management programs that communicate one clear message: this is not a place where water can be taken for granted. For buyers who relocated to Fresno specifically to escape financial pressure, discovering that water costs, restrictions, and long-term supply uncertainty come bundled with the affordability creates a real problem. The city sold itself as the practical choice. But practical choices lose their appeal when the hidden costs start compiling. Rising utility bills, outdoor watering restrictions, agricultural sector ripple effects on local employment, and a broader sense that the region is managing scarcity rather than enjoying abundance. When a market's core value proposition weakens, homes don't need to crash to lose value. They just need to stop appreciating at the rate buyers expected when they move there. Number 6. El Paso, Texas. El Paso occupies a unique position on this list because it sits downstream, geographically and literally, from some of the most serious water stress in the American Southwest. The Rio Grande system, which El Paso depends on alongside its groundwater resources, has been under extraordinary pressure. Early 2026 reporting from water advocates in the region pointed to critically low reservoir storage and weak snowpack in the river's headwaters, conditions that make the coming irrigation season one of the most difficult in recent memory. When the river that anchors a desert city's water future is running low from the mountains to the border, the effects are real and cumulative. For El Paso's housing market, the danger is subtle but serious. The city has historically sold itself as the steady, practical Texas option, more affordable than San Antonio or Austin, with a stable binational economy and a resilient working-class identity. That steadiness has been a legitimate competitive advantage. But water instability doesn't care about a city's identity. When groundwater becomes more heavily relied upon because river flows are disappointing, costs go up. When water allocation fights intensify, future growth gets harder. When a desert city has to publicly wrestle with long-term supply concerns, buyers start adding that uncertainty into their calculations, even buyers who would never have thought to ask about water a few years ago. Number 5. Palm Springs, California. Palm Springs is the clearest example on this list of what happens when water stress collides directly with a luxury lifestyle market. This is a city built entirely around a very specific promise: desert luxury, pools, golf courses, manicured landscaping, resort-quality outdoor living. Buyers pay significant premium, often for second homes or retirement properties, specifically because Palm Springs delivers a version of California living that feels indulgent and effortless. Water is not incidental to that promise. Water is the promise. Every pool, every fairway, every lush private garden represents water use in one of the driest environments in North America. And the Coachella Valley, the broader region Palm Springs anchors, has been navigating serious concerns about its long-term relationship with the Colorado River, the ultimate source of much of the water that makes that lifestyle possible. Future allocation cuts, rising water rates, and stricter landscaping policies are not abstract possibilities. They are already influencing how residents and buyers think about long-term costs. The housing numbers reflect it. Prices in Palm Springs have pulled back meaningfully year over year. Homes are sitting on the market longer. Some neighborhoods have seen double-digit percentage declines. In a market where so much value is built on the effortlessness of the lifestyle, the moment that effortlessness starts coming with asterisks, premiums evaporate quickly. Number 4. Tucson, Arizona. Tucson is where water scarcity has stopped being a background concern and started directly interrupting the growth machine. Arizona's water crisis has been reshaping development conversations across the state, and Tucson is squarely in the middle of it. Reports from early 2026 confirm that water worries tied to drought, groundwater depletion, and the pressures of rapid growth are intensifying. Some housing developments in the broader region have already been blocked or delayed specifically because water supply cannot be adequately guaranteed. That is a significant and direct threat to housing values, not because existing homes lose their water service, but because growth itself becomes constrained. When a city cannot easily approve new development, the dynamism that supports housing confidence weakens. Builders pull back. Long-term expansion plans get questioned. The narrative of a rising market loses some of its foundation. For buyers considering Tucson, the appeal has always included space, affordability relative to coastal alternatives, and the optimism of a growing Sunbelt city. But when growth hits a water ceiling, that optimism has to be recalibrated. The city may still grow, but not as freely or as cheaply as it once did. And when growth gets more expensive and more politically contested, housing reflects that. Number 3. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas earns its spot near the top of this list because of a single undeniable fact. Approximately 90% of southern Nevada's water supply comes from one source, Lake Mead. The Southern Nevada Water Authority has publicly confirmed that a Tier 1 shortage remains in effect through 2026, with planning documents already accounting for deeper cuts if the lake's elevation continues declining. This is not speculation. It is official, published water policy based on a reservoir that has been struggling for years. For housing, the implications are layered. Las Vegas has continued growing. New communities, new rooftops, new residents arriving from higher-cost states. That growth narrative has been central to housing confidence, but every new household added to the metro is another draw on the same stress system. And when the foundation of that system is one lake feeding one very large, very hot, very water-intensive city, buyers eventually start doing the math. Conservation has been aggressive in Las Vegas. The Water Authority has done genuinely innovative work recycling indoor water use. But outdoor water, landscaping, pools, the physical appearance of neighborhoods remains politically and practically complicated, and buyers purchasing into a growth market that runs almost entirely through one reservoir are, whether they realize it or not, making a concentrated bet on that reservoir's future. When the bet feels uncertain, the premium for the market gets thinner. Number 2, San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio does not fit the visual profile of a water crisis city. It is lush by Texas standards, family-oriented, and has built a housing market reputation on exactly the kind of comfortable, affordable suburban growth that attracts households from more expensive metros. That image has been powerful. But in 2026, Stage 3 water restrictions remain in effect across the city because of prolonged drought conditions and declining levels in the Edwards Aquifer, the underground water system that San Antonio depends on more heavily than almost any other major American city depends on a single source. Stage 3 restrictions are not routine. They represent meaningful limits on outdoor water use, landscaping practices, and the kind of yard maintenance that is central to the suburban lifestyle San Antonio sells. When those restrictions become normalized, when buyers stop thinking of them as temporary and start treating them as part of what ownership in this city means, the housing value proposition shifts. San Antonio has attracted families with a specific promise: more home, more yard, more space for your money. But space without water is just dirt. And when maintaining that space becomes more expensive, more restricted, and more uncertain, the value formula that made San Antonio an attractive destination weakens. The city is not in crisis, but it is in a sustained pressure situation, and sustained pressure on a market's core appeal has a way of slowly deflating confidence in ways that eventually show up in sale prices and days on market numbers. Number 1, Corpus Christi, Texas. Every other city on this list is carrying water risk. Corpus Christi is carrying a water emergency. This is not a story about long-term trends or gradual shifts in buyer psychology. This is a story about a major American city whose reservoir system, as of early 2026, sat at combined storage levels in the single digits. Officials have publicly warned the city could enter formal emergency water conditions within months. Texas political leadership has been openly discussing state intervention. Desalination plans, expensive, complex, not yet operational, have become the subject of urgent political battles that residents are watching in real time. For housing, this is the scenario that doesn't require sophisticated market analysis to understand. Buyers don't need a real estate report to feel the risk when a city's officials are publicly discussing the possibility of running out of water. They don't need a consultant to tell them that emergency water conditions create uncertainty about daily life, business operations, future growth, and long-term property values. The fear alone, the credible, official, publicly acknowledged fear, is enough to make buyers hesitate. And in real estate, hesitation is the beginning of price discovery in the wrong direction. Sellers who need to move cannot wait for the water situation to resolve. Buyers who have options elsewhere exercise those options. The market doesn't need to collapse, it just needs the confidence to drain. And in Corpus Christi right now, confidence is draining alongside the reservoirs. What connects every city on this list is not a single dramatic disaster. It is something more gradual, and in many ways more dangerous. The slow erosion of the one thing that holds housing values together. Confidence. Confidence that the city can support stable life. Confidence that the infrastructure is sound. Confidence that buying a home means buying into a future, not a liability. Water stress doesn't announce itself with a single catastrophic moment. It builds in water bills, in restriction notices, in landscaping fights, in headlines about aquifer levels and reservoir storage, in development approvals that take longer and cost more, and eventually in home prices that stop climbing and start drifting, because enough buyers have quietly added water to the list of reasons to wait, negotiate, or look somewhere else. The American housing market is enormous, resilient, and complicated. Not every home in every one of these cities is about to lose value. But the direction of risk is becoming clearer. Markets that carry serious water questions now face a harder sales conversation than they did 2 or 3 years ago, and that harder conversation always eventually shows up in the price. If you are buying, selling, or investing in any market dealing with water stress, the time to understand that risk is before the market prices it in, not after. That's what today was about.